February 1944, the North Atlantic, 200 feet below the frigid surface where sunlight had not penetrated in 1,000 years, the German submarine U-549 drifted through absolute darkness. Inside the cramped control room, 43 men held their breath. The sonar ping cut through their hull like a blade through flesh, sharp, relentless. The death song of an American destroyer hunting them through black water. Kapitän Lieutenant Klaus Hannert gripped the periscope mount until his knuckles turned white. The sound was wrong. There should be propeller noise overhead. The rush of a destroyer racing toward them at flank speed. The frantic scramble to drop depth charges. Standard procedure. Predictable. Survivable if you were experienced and lucky. But this destroyer stayed distant. The sonar ping remained locked. Constant. Unrelenting. Something was different this time. Something that made every man in that steel tube understand they were about to die. Above the waves aboard the USS Elmore, Lieutenant Thomas Hayes studied his sonar screen with surgical precision. The green line pulsed steadily. Target acquired, range 300 yards, depth 200 feet. For the first time in naval warfare, Hayes could still see his prey. The submarine had not vanished into the acoustic dead zone. The hunter had not gone blind at the critical moment. 24 Hedgehog spigot mortars bristled from the destroyer's bow like spines of some mechanical beast. Each projectile weighed 65 pounds. Each carried 35 pounds of Torpex explosive, 50% more powerful than TNT. Each had a contact fuse that would only detonate if it struck something solid, something like a submarine's pressure hull. The order came crisp and clear. Fire Hedgehog. In less than 2 seconds, all 24 projectiles arced into the gray morning sky, then plunged into the Atlantic in a perfect circular pattern 130 feet in diameter. They sank silently at 23 feet per second, 3 times faster than conventional depth charges. No explosions, no warning. Just silent metal racing toward the target through cold water that would not betray their approach. Inside U-549, someone whispered a prayer in German. 30 seconds of terrible silence. Then boom, boom, boom. 3 direct hits. The pressure hull crumpled like paper crushed in a fist. Seawater exploded inward at 400 gallons per minute, driven by 20 atmospheres of pressure. The submarine lost all buoyancy, began sinking toward crush depth. This was death at 200 feet. This was the future of submarine warfare. This was the weapon that would change everything. May 1944. USS England, a Buckley-class destroyer escort, barely 1,400 tons, 1/4 the displacement of a fleet destroyer. Lieutenant Robert Carson stood on the bridge wing at 0400 hours, could not sleep. Had not slept well in 18 months, not since the telegram arrived. The one that said his younger brother Daniel had died when U-boats torpedoed his merchant ship in the Atlantic. Daniel was 19, a radio operator on a Liberty ship carrying the supplies to Britain. The torpedo hit at night. Ship went down in 4 minutes. 27 crew members died, including Daniel. No survivors recovered from the radio room. Carson had promised their mother he would look after Daniel. Had failed completely. Carson was 29 years old, Annapolis graduate, class of 1937, average student, not brilliant, not connected, just competent, assigned to destroyer escorts because that was where the Navy needed bodies. He discovered he had a talent, an obsession really, with anti-submarine warfare, with understanding how German U-boats hunted, how they evaded, how they survived depth charge attacks that should have killed them. After Daniel died, the obsession became something darker, something focused. He read every after-action report he could access, studied every failed attack, calculated every miss. The statistics were devastating. British forces had conducted 5 174 depth charge attacks against U-boats, achieved only 85 confirmed kills, a ratio of 60 to 1. 60 attacks to kill 1 submarine, the mathematics of industrial failure. Allied merchant ships were being sunk faster than shipyards could build them. Carson understood the problem with brutal clarity. Depth charges were dropped over the stern after the destroyer passed over the submarine's last known position. But in those final 300 yards, as the ship closed range, sonar became useless. The returning echo merged with the outgoing ping, what operators called the instantaneous echo, the acoustic blind spot. For those critical final moments, the submarine vanished completely. The U-boat commander could dive deeper, turn hard, reduce speed, making desperate evasive maneuvers while his hunter fumbled in acoustic darkness. By the time the destroyer dropped its depth charges, the submarine had already moved. The charges exploded at preset depths, creating massive underwater concussions. But water cushioned the blast, dissipated explosive force. A depth charge had to detonate within 20 feet of the pressure hull to guarantee a kill. Twice that distance might force the boat to surface with damage. But most submarines survived. Then came 15 minutes of acoustic chaos. The explosions disrupted sonar completely. By the time the water settled enough to search again, the U-boat had vanished. Carson became executive officer of USS England in March 1944. Commander James Mitchell gave him free rein. Mitchell was 36, a Mustang officer who had started as enlisted, understood that results mattered more than protocol, recognized obsession when he saw it, recognized that Carson's particular obsession might save lives. So Mitchell let Carson drill the crew. Day after day, night exercises, sonar operators tracking targets until they could identify submarine types by sound alone. Hedgehog crews loading and firing until they could launch a full salvo in under 90 seconds. Engine room gang coordinating speed changes with attack runs until the ship moved like an extension of Carson's will. The crew called the England a taut ship. Some said too taut. Carson did not care what they said. He cared about one thing: killing submarines, killing them efficiently, killing them the way U-boats had killed Daniel, without warning, without mercy, without any chance to escape. Sonarman First Class. Michael Torres was 22 years old, Mexican-American from Los Angeles, had served under Carson for 6 months, understood the XO's intensity was not cruelty, it was desperation. Desperation to make the weapons work, to make physics win where courage alone could not. Gunner's mate Jack Sullivan was 27. Boston Irish, Hedgehog crew chief. He had loaded and fired the weapons so many times he could do it blindfolded. Knew every projectile by weight. Knew when the launcher was aligned properly by sound alone. If Carson's sonar operators could find the submarine, Sullivan's crew would kill it. That was the deal. That was what 18 months of drilling had created. Not just competence, certainty. Commander Mitchell understood what was happening aboard his ship. Understood that Carson was transforming USS England into something unusual, a precision instrument rather than a blunt weapon. Other captains might have resented an executive officer this aggressive, but Mitchell had read the statistics, had calculated the odds. 60-1 meant most destroyer escorts would never sink a single submarine during their entire war service. Carson's methods offered different odds, better mathematics, so Mitchell gave him authority to implement his vision completely. May 1941, 3 years earlier. Liverpool Bay, England. Dr. William Bradford stood on a dock watching HMS Westcott test fire the weapon his team had spent 18 months developing. Bradford was 52 years old, Cambridge-educated physicist, recruited by Royal Navy's Department of Miscellaneous Weapons Development in 1939. His specialty was solving impossible problems. Problems like, how do you kill a submarine that disappears at the exact moment when precise targeting matters most? The weapon had no official name yet. Sailors called it Hedgehog because the empty launcher tubes resembled spines on a hedgehog's back. 24 spigot mortars arranged in 4 rows of 6, each angled outward at precisely calculated degrees. The idea sounded simple: fire the charges forward while the submarine was still visible on sonar. Hit it before reaching the blind spot. The projectiles would only explode on direct contact with the hull. A miss meant silence. Sonar contact maintained, another attack possible immediately. A hit meant certain death. But Bradford's motivation was not just professional. His son David was serving as gunnery officer on a Royal Navy destroyer in the Mediterranean, 24 years old. Every week brought letters describing near misses with Italian submarines, describing depth charge attacks that failed, describing merchant ships torpedoed while escorts fumbled with weapons that did not work. Bradford understood that every day he failed to perfect Hedgehog Allied sailors died, including potentially his own son. The pressure was crushing. The engineering challenges were staggering. Design a bomb that could penetrate water at high speed. sink rapidly to catch submarines before they could escape, strike a curved steel surface at variable angles, still detonate reliably. Early prototypes failed spectacularly. Bombs with pointed noses skipped off the water like stones. Spherical designs tumbled unpredictably. Two light charges lacked destructive power. Two heavy bombs sank slowly, giving submarines time to escape. The breakthrough came from studying intelligence photographs. An image of a German U-boat in dock with a worker standing on the pressure hull. By calculating the worker's height, Bradford's engineers estimated the gap between outer deck and inner pressure hull. This distance determined whether a hit on the deck would transfer enough explosive force to breach the pressure hull itself. The final design used a flat nose to prevent skipping, a tubular tail for stability, 35 pounds of Torpex explosive. But the real innovation was the contact fuse mounted in the nose. It had to withstand the shock of hitting water at terminal velocity, yet still detonate from the lighter impact against a submarine hull underwater. The fuse solved what engineers called the water entry problem. Each projectile splashed down nose first. A spring-loaded propeller began spinning as the bomb sank. After approximately 5 feet of descent, the propeller had armed the fuse. If the projectile struck a hard surface, submarine hull steel deck, even the ocean floor impact triggered detonation. But if it landed in soft mud or missed entirely, it remained inert. No explosion, no acoustic interference. April 1941, the first live fire test against a known wreck. Bradford's team loaded Hedgehog projectiles, fired the salvo, watched 24 bombs arc into the sea, sink. Nothing happened. No detonations. Complete failure. The contact fuses had failed. Crushed by water entry shock, could not withstand hitting the surface at terminal velocity. Back to the workshop, back to calculations, back to testing. David wrote from the Mediterranean. His destroyer had lost another convoy. 5 merchant ships torpedoed. 137 crew members killed. All because depth charges could not stop submarines that knew how to evade. By late 1941, Bradford had the solution. The spring-loaded propeller fuse. Genius in mechanical simplicity. Impact with water started the propeller spinning. After 5 feet, the fuse was armed. Strike anything hard, and detonation occurred. Miss and land in mud, the weapon stayed silent. Production began late 1942. First Hedgehog-equipped destroyers entered service November 1942. First confirmed kill came that same month. But nobody predicted what was about to happen in the Pacific. Nobody predicted the USS England. May 1944. Submarine I-16 Imperial Japanese Navy. Commander Takeshi Yamada sat in the captain's chair studying charts. 38 years old, veteran of Pearl Harbor attack. Commanded I-16 for 2 years. Survived 12 depth charge attacks. Faith in Japanese engineering was absolute. Faith in his crew's discipline, unshakable. His mission was clear. Part of Admiral Toyoda's submarine picket line. 7 boats stationed at precise intervals from Truk to Manus. Early warning system to detect American fleet movements. If the picket detected invasion forces, combined fleet could intercept and destroy them before they reached their target. Yamada had written to his wife Akiko last week about their daughter Yuki, 12 years old now, asking when father would return. He told Akiko the same thing he always told her. Japanese submarines were superior to American destroyers. Their sonar was primitive, their depth charges crude, their tactics predictable. I-16 had evaded every attack through superior seamanship and crew discipline. The Americans dropped charges blindly, hoped for lucky hits. Hope was not strategy. Discipline was strategy. Training was strategy. Japanese superiority was fact. But something was changing in the Pacific. Intelligence reports mentioned new American weapons, forward-firing mortars, contact fuses, increased kill rates. Yamada dismissed the reports as exaggeration. American propaganda. He trusted steel, trusted his crew, trusted that discipline and skill would overcome crude American firepower. That faith was about to be tested by a weapon he had never heard of, by physics he did not understand, by an American crew that had drilled until they functioned like a machine, by Lieutenant Robert Carson's obsession with killing submarines exactly the way they had killed his brother. May 14, 1944. USS England received decoded intelligence. Japanese submarine I-16 carrying supplies to Bougainville garrison. Departure date, May 14th from Truk. Expected arrival, March 19th. USS England was part of Hunter-Killer Group. 3 destroyer escorts. England, George Raby. Their orders were explicit. Intercept I-16. Find it, sink it. This was submarine warfare as assassination. Targeted, methodical, surgical. Carson gathered the crew that evening, briefed them on the mission. His voice was flat, professional. But the crew knew about his brother Daniel, knew about the 18 months of obsessive drilling, knew this was personal. Torres was ready, had trained for exactly this moment. Sullivan had checked every Hedgehog projectile, verified every fuse, made certain the weapons would not fail when Carson found the target. Mitchell addressed the crew last, reminded them that USS England was the smallest ship in the task force, reminded them that other destroyer escorts had Hedgehog and achieved far less, reminded them that weapons were just tools. Crews made them lethal. Carson had made this crew lethal. Now they would prove it. That night, the crew slept uneasily. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, the hunting would begin. Tomorrow, USS England would start making history. Tomorrow, physics would test faith. Tomorrow, American engineering would challenge Japanese steel. Tomorrow, Robert Carson would begin the hunt that would never end until 5 submarines lay on the ocean floor, until 358 Japanese sailors were dead, until revenge was complete, until the mathematics of war proved that obsession channeled into precision could accomplish what conventional tactics never could. The ocean was vast, the submarines were small, but intelligence made the ocean transparent. Hedgehog made the submarines vulnerable. Carson's drilling made the crew unstoppable. Physics would do the rest. All that remained was the execution. The moment when sonar found target, when Sullivan's crew launched projectiles, when Torpex met steel, when pressure hulls crumpled, when men died without knowing what killed them, when war became mathematical, when killing became efficient, when revenge became reality. Tomorrow, May 19th, the hunting would begin. The first submarine would die. Commander Takeshi Yamada would learn that faith in steel was misplaced, that Japanese engineering could not overcome American physics when American physics was applied with Carson's obsessive precision, that submarines were no longer hunters, were prey, were targets, were problems to be solved through superior weapons and superior drilling and superior execution. Tomorrow the ocean would become graveyard. Tomorrow the picket line would begin to fall. Tomorrow USS England would earn its place in naval history. Tomorrow the weapon that crushed submarines like paper would prove its worth. Tomorrow Hedgehog would demonstrate that forward-firing mortars with contact fuses could revolutionize naval warfare. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight there was only waiting, only preparation, only the quiet before killing began. Only the calm before physics met faith and proved which mattered more. Only the darkness before dawn brought light and death and understanding that war was not about courage or honor or tradition. War was about mathematics, about weapons that worked, about crews that executed perfectly, about killing efficiently before the enemy could kill you, about physics applied with precision, about steel crushed by Torpex, about submarines sinking, about men drowning, about telegrams sent to wives and mothers, about daughters abroad who would grow up without fathers, about the terrible cost of victory measured in enemy dead and allied saved, and the mathematics that said this was necessary. This was war. This was what winning required. This was what Carson had spent 18 months preparing for. This was revenge. This was justice. This was the moment when obsession would be validated or proven futile. Tomorrow would tell which. Tonight was only waiting. May 19th, 1944. Solomon Islands, 0600 hours. The hunt began exactly as Carson had calculated it would. Torres sat at his sonar station in the dimly lit Combat Information Center. Headphones pressed tight against his ears. Green line pulsing across the screen. He had been listening to ocean sounds for 4 hours straight, filtering out biological noise, ignoring thermal layers, searching for the distinctive acoustic signature of a Japanese submarine's diesel engines. At 1:37 p.m., the line changed, became sharper, more defined, contact. Bearing 090, range 1, 500 yards. Torres called it out with voice steady despite racing hard. Submarine contact. The words every destroyer escort crew had trained to hear, but most would never actually speak in combat. Carson was beside him in seconds. Studied the screen, analyzed the pattern. This was I-16. Had to be. Intelligence had predicted the submarine would be exactly here at exactly this time. Commander Yamada was following his orders with Japanese precision, approaching Bougainville on a schedule. Disciplined, professional, predictable, fatal. The submarine was playing games with depth, following England's wake, staying directly astern where sonar had maximum difficulty maintaining clean lock. Classic evasion tactics, textbook maneuvers. Yamada was good, experienced, not making mistakes. But he was fighting a weapon he did not know existed, fighting tactics he had never encountered, fighting an American crew that had drilled for this exact scenario until perfect execution became muscle memory. Carson moved to the bridge, gave orders in clipped professional tone, increased speed to 12 knots, come right to heading 105, prepare Hedgehog for firing. Sullivan's crew moved with practiced efficiency, loading projectiles, checking launcher alignment, verifying fuse mechanisms. Everything had to be perfect. One mechanical failure and the submarine would escape, would alert other boats in the picket line, would compromise the entire operation. First attack run. Carson calculated depth speed course. The submarine was deeper than sonar initially indicated. Yamada was using the wake turbulence for acoustic camouflage. Clever, but not clever enough. Fire Hedgehog. Sullivan's crew launched 24 projectiles in perfect pattern. The mortars fired with synchronized precision. Projectiles arced forward, splashed into the ocean in their calculated circle, sank rapidly. 30 seconds of terrible silence. Nothing. No detonations. Miss. The submarine had gone deeper than Carson estimated. Yamada had anticipated the attack somehow. Read England's movements. Change depth at critical moment. Carson recalculated. Second attack, adjusted for deeper contact. Fire. Silence. Miss again. Yamada had changed depth again, was reading the destroyer's pattern, anticipating attacks, evading with skill that came from surviving 12 previous depth charge attacks. Third attack. Carson tried shallower calculation, compensation for Yamada's evasion pattern. Fire. Silence. Miss. Fourth attack. Fire. Silence. Miss. 4 salvos expended. 96 projectiles fired. 0 hits. The crew was getting nervous. Sullivan reloaded with mechanical efficiency, but hands shook slightly. Torres maintained perfect sonar contact, but sweat ran down his face despite the air conditioning. Mitchell stood beside Carson, said nothing. Trusted his XO, trusted the drilling, trusted the obsession that had brought them to this moment. Carson studied the sonar pattern with intensity that bordered on religious devotion. There was a pattern here, had to be. Yamada was smart, using wake turbulence for camouflage, playing with depth to throw off attacks. But patterns could be read, behavior could be predicted. Physics could not be evaded forever. The submarine was varying depth but maintaining heading, trying to reach deeper water where Hedgehog would be less effective. Carson saw it, understood it, knew exactly what Yamada would do next. Fifth attack run at 2:33 p.m. Carson adjusted for contact deeper than sonar indicated, compensating for Yamada's evasion pattern, predicting rather than reacting. Fire Hedgehog. 24 projectiles launched, splashed down, sank into darkness. 30 seconds that felt like hours. Then the crew heard it. 4 explosions. Maybe 6. Difficult to count when detonations overlapped. Sharp cracks transmitted through water. Different from depth charges. Closer, more focused. Right against the hull. Then came the sound Torres would hear in nightmares for the rest of his life. Breaking up noises. The sharp, brittle cracking of internal bulkheads collapsing under pressure. Metal screaming as it failed. The submarine was dying. 2 minutes later, a massive underwater detonation rocked England, lifted the stern clear of the water, threw men off their feet. The submarine had exceeded crush depth. Pressure hull imploded catastrophically. Inside I-16, those final 2 minutes were hell compressed into heartbeats. The first Hedgehog projectile struck near the forward torpedo room, punched through outer hull, detonated against pressure hull, 35 pounds of Torpex at point-blank range. The explosion obliterated a section 8 inches in diameter. At 200 feet depth, seawater did not leak. It exploded inward like industrial fire hose driven by 20 atmospheres of pressure, 400 gallons per minute flooding the compartment. Yamada tried to blow ballast tanks, tried to surface. Controls did not respond. Forward compartments flooding instantly. Emergency lighting flickered. Died. Men shouted in darkness. The submarine's trim became uncontrollable. Bow heavy, nose down, sinking toward depths the hull was never designed to withstand. Temperature rose as water compressed internal atmosphere. Basic thermodynamics. Within 90 seconds, air temperature exceeded 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Crew's lungs seared. Consciousness faded. Not from drowning, but from breathing superheated steam. At approximately 350 meters far beyond I-16's design limits, the pressure hull failed catastrophically. When submarine hulls fail, they fail explosively. The implosion generated shockwave powerful enough to detonate torpedoes, collapse remaining compartments, compress the boat into fraction of original length. 68 Japanese sailors died in those 2 minutes. Not one survived to see ocean surface again. Commander Takeshi Yamada's faith in Japanese steel died with him. His last thoughts were of Akiko and Yuki, of promises he would never keep, of steel that had failed when faith said it could not. By nightfall, oil slick covered 6 square miles. Debris bobbed on gentle swells, life jackets, papers, personal effects, small reminders that 68 men had existed, had lived, had families waiting. Mitchell logged the kill in official records. First submarine destroyed. Torres sat in sonar room staring at empty screen, understanding what he had just done, what Carson's obsession had created, what physics applied with precision had accomplished. He had helped kill 68 men, men with wives like Akiko, daughters like Yuki, men whose only crime was serving their country exactly as Torres served his. Sullivan cleaned Hedgehog launchers with mechanical movements. Did not talk, did not celebrate. Just methodical maintenance as if this was routine training exercise rather than first actual kill. Carson wrote in journal with careful, precise handwriting. First submarine destroyed. 4 misses before achieving hit. Must improve efficiency. Must reduce ammunition expenditure. Must make every shot count. No mention of 68 dead. No mention of families destroyed. Just calculations. Just statistics. Just the mathematics of efficient killing. May 22nd, 3 days after I-16. The hunter-killer group detected RO-106 on surface using radar. Submarine cruising to recharge batteries. Vulnerable. Exposed. George fired Hedgehog first. Miss. England made sonar contact immediately. First salvo. Miss. Engine noise indicated aggressive maneuvering. Japanese captain was good. Reading attack patterns. Evading with skill. Second Hedgehog attack at 5:01 a.m. At least 3 projectiles detonated on target. Sharp cracks transmitted through water. Breaking up noises followed. Wreckage bubbled to surface. Oil slick confirmed kill by noon. 56 crew lost. Carson's journal entry was brief. Second submarine destroyed. 1 attack to kill. Improvement from I-16. Crew learning attack patterns. Must maintain drilling discipline to preserve efficiency gains. 2 submarines in 4 days. The mathematics were improving. The killing was becoming more efficient. The crew was learning how death sounded when transmitted through water, how oil slicks looked spreading across calm ocean, how debris floated when submarines imploded at depth. May 23rd, RO-104 detected. The Rabbit attacked first, fired 4 Hedgehog salvos, all missed. Japanese submarine commander was exceptional, listening to engine noise, timing evasion turns with precision, diving deep, changing course unpredictably, using every technique developed in 3 years of Pacific combat. George tried next, 7 Hedgehog attacks between 7:17 and 8 to 10 a.m. Every salvo failed to connect. The submarine was putting on virtuoso performance, making American crews look incompetent, proving that skill could overcome technology when skill was applied with sufficient expertise. Then England's turn. Carson studied sonar with predatory focus that made Torres uncomfortable. The XO's intensity had crossed some invisible line, had become something beyond professional competence, had become obsession that consumed everything else. RO-104 was at 300 feet, deeper than doctrine recommended for hedgehog attacks. Standard procedure discouraged engaging targets beyond 400 feet. But Carson had drilled his crew for exactly this scenario. New equipment capabilities better than any manual. New physics better than the engineers who designed the weapons. Fire hedgehog. 45 seconds of silence. Crew counted explosions. 10, maybe 12. Difficult to say when detonations overlapped into single continuous sound. Then came the breaking up noises. Sharp, brittle cracking. Internal bulkheads collapsing under pressure that exceeded design specifications. 3 minutes later, the secondary explosion. Massive. The pressure hull imploding at depth. 54 crew lost. 3 submarines in 6 days. Torres began having nightmares that night, dreaming about men drowning in darkness, about pressure holes crushing, about superheated steam cooking lungs, about faces he never saw, names he would never know, families he had destroyed through perfect sonar operation. He was 22 years old, had killed more men than most infantry soldiers killed in entire war service. But infantry saw their enemies, fought face to face, had chance to understand what killing meant. Torres killed men he never saw, killed them with physics and mathematics, killed them efficiently from distance. That made death abstract, made killing feel like video game rather than war. Sullivan found Torres in sonar room at 2 a.m. The gunner could not sleep either. They sat in darkness, did not talk about killing, talked about baseball, about home, about anything except oil slicks and debris fields, except understanding that each piece of wreckage had been someone's father, someone's brother, someone's son. Mitchell found them there, did not order them to quarters. Understood that efficient killing extracted costs, conventional combat did not. Sat down, shared coffee from thermos. Understood that Carson's methods worked, achieved results other crews could not match. But also understood the cost was being paid in psychological damage that would last long after war ended. Carson did not join them, stayed in his cabin, calculating, planning next attack, improving tactics based on lessons learned. The obsession had found outlet, had found purpose. 3 submarines killed in 6 days. Admiral Toyoda's picket line was being systematically erased, but Toyota did not know yet. Radio silence protocols meant boats did not report routine positions. From his perspective, the early warning network was functioning perfectly. Japanese doctrine assumed silence meant normal operations, could not comprehend that silence meant death, that American intelligence was reading Japanese codes, that hunter-killer groups were executing targeted assassinations, that submarines were dying one by one. May 26th, RO-116 contact at 1:50 a.m. First attack, 3 to 5 detonations, but this time no massive secondary explosion. Just breaking up noises suggesting slow death rather than catastrophic implosion. Submarine dying gradually, sinking toward crush depth but taking minutes instead of seconds. By dawn, only small oil slick visible. 56 crew lost, 4 submarines in 9 days. The crew was exhausted, running on adrenaline and coffee. 7 days continuous alert. Mitchell considered requesting relief, rotating to port for rest, but the mission was not complete. Intelligence indicated more submarines in picket line, more targets, more kills to achieve. May 26, 11:04 p.m. England was supposed to transit to Manus for resupply. Hedgehog magazine half empty. Crew beyond exhaustion. Operating on pure will. Then Torres called contact. Another submarine, RO-108, surfaced, running diesels, recharging batteries. Perfect target. Mitchell faced decision. Should be heading for resupply, should be giving crew rest. But contact was clear. Submarine had not detected them. Opportunity would not repeat. Mitchell ordered one attack run. Just one. Then Manus, regardless of result, England closed to optimal firing range. RO-108 dived when destroyer's engines became audible. Too late, Carson had solid sonar lock, knew exact position depth heading, one Hedgehog salvo, 4 to 6 hits, breaking up noises immediately. Pressure hull catastrophically breached. 53 Japanese sailors died in under 1 minute, 5 submarines in 9 days. When England docked at Manus May 27th, the crew looked like ghosts, exhausted, hollow-eyed, moving like automatons, running on will alone. Resupply took 48 hours. Fresh Hedgehog projectiles, new depth charges, fuel, provisions. But no amount of resupply could replace what crew had lost. Sleep helped bond bodies, did nothing for minds that replayed breaking up noises, that calculated bodies, that understood they were becoming execution squad rather than warriors, that recognized efficiency in killing was not something to celebrate, was burden to carry. May 30th, intelligence reported RO-105. This submarine was different. Carried Captain Kato, commander of Submarine Division 51, high-value target. Lieutenant Commander Kenji Nakamura commanded RO-105, 34 years old, most experienced submarine captain in picket line. Had evaded 2 American torpedoes through radical maneuvering on previous patrol. This crew would not die easily. This would be test of everything England had learned, everything Carson had drilled into them, everything that separated them from other destroyer escorts that achieved far less. Destroyer Hazelwood detected RO-105 on radar at 1:10 a.m. Submarine running surfaced, dived immediately when illuminated, surfaced it again at 3:10 a.m. Dangerous gambit, suggested damaged batteries or desperate need for fresh air after extended submersion. George and Raby both gained radar contact. Nakamura executed brilliant maneuver, positioned boat directly between 2 American destroyers. Neither could fire Hedgehog without risking hitting friendly ship. For 5 critical minutes, submarine exploited geometric protection. Nakamura was proving that skill could overcome weapons, that intelligence could defeat technology when applied with sufficient expertise. Then RO-105 dived. Sonar hunt began. Raby fired first. Miss. George attacked. Miss. Raby again. Miss. Spangler moved in. Miss. Nakamura was putting on virtuoso performance, diving deep, turning sharply, varying speed, using every evasion technique developed in 3 years of Pacific combat. 4 American destroyer escorts firing Hedgehog, all missing, proving that even best weapons required perfect execution. That skill mattered. That training determined outcomes. At dawn, Commander Haynes, commanding George and Raby, transmitted radio message that would become legendary. His voice carried frustration and respect and understanding that England's crew had achieved something other crews could not match. Oh hell, go ahead, England. Carson fired at 7:36 a.m. Perfect sonar lock, perfect calculation, perfect execution. 6 to 10 detonations, breaking up noises followed. Then at 7:41 a.m., the massive secondary explosion. Pressure hull imploded. 55 crew lost, including Captain Kato. 5 submarines in 12 days. Admiral King sent message from Washington. There will always be an England in the United States Navy. But Carson felt no triumph, felt only exhaustion and understanding that he had become exactly what he set out to become. Efficient killer of submarines. Executioner rather than warrior. The mathematics worked. The kills mounted. Statistics that would never be matched. Record that would stand for all time. But something essential was being lost with each oil slick, with each debris field, with each crew that died without seeing what killed them. Torres sat in sonar room that night, staring at empty screen, calculating. He had helped kill 5 submarines, 358 Japanese sailors, men with families, with dreams, with lives that mattered to people who loved them. He had killed them all through perfect sonar operation, through maintaining lock when other operators lost contact, through doing his job so well that death became inevitable. Mathematics became murder. Efficiency became execution. Sullivan cleaned Hedgehog launchers for 5th time, mechanical movements hiding questions he could not answer. Was this victory? Was this achievement? 5 submarines destroyed, 500% better than any other destroyer escort. Record unmatched in naval warfare. But 500 Japanese families would receive telegrams. 500 mothers would weep. 500 children would grow up without fathers. Was that mathematics or was that murder? Was efficiency, virtue, or sin? Carson wrote final entry in journal. 5 submarines destroyed in 12 days. 100% kill rate across 5 separate engagements. Tactics proven, crew performance exceptional. Mission successful. Then he closed the journal, sat in darkness, thought about Daniel drowning in radio room, about promise to mother, about revenge that felt hollow, about killing that had been too efficient, too perfect, too mathematical. War demanded efficiency, demanded results. Demanded killing before being killed. Carson had delivered, had proven obsession could achieve what conventional tactics never could, had made USS England into legend. But legends were built on bodies, on oil slicks spreading across calm water, on debris fields marking graves, on families destroyed, on promises broken, on faith in steel that failed when physics proved superior, on submarines that sank, on men who drowned, on war that made everyone into killers and called it duty, called it honor, called it necessary. Maybe it was all those things. Maybe killing 358 men to save Allied lives was justified. Maybe mathematics proved the equation balanced. But mathematics could not capture what Torres saw in nightmares, could not measure what Sullivan felt cleaning weapons, could not calculate what Carson had lost becoming efficient executioner of submarines. War demanded efficiency, but efficiency extracted costs that statistics never captured. Costs paid in sleepless nights and haunted memories and understanding that perfect execution of killing was achievement that could never be celebrated, only endured, only survived, only carried forward into whatever peace might follow. If peace could follow, if killing ever ended, if war ever stopped demanding more bodies, more oil slicks, more perfect efficiency, more mathematics, more death. June 1944. Admiral Sumu Toyota sat in his flagship studying charts of the Pacific. His submarine picket line had been silent for 2 weeks. 7 boats stationed at precise intervals from Truk to Manus. I-16, RO-106, RO-104, RO-116, RO-108, RO-105, RO-117. Radio silence was standard protocol. Submarines only transmitted when detecting enemy fleet movements. Silence meant normal operations. Silence meant the early warning network was functioning as designed. Silence meant Japanese naval superiority remained intact. Toyota had no idea that silence meant death. That 6 of his 7 submarines already lay on the ocean floor. That American codebreakers had read his orders. That hunter-killer groups had executed targeted assassinations. That USS England had systematically erased his picket line submarine by submarine. That 358 submariners were dead. That the silence he interpreted as discipline was actually the silence of graves. June 15th, American forces invaded Saipan in the Marianas, completely bypassing Palau, where Toyota had positioned his combined fleet based on intelligence from submarines he believed were operational. The fleet was out of position, low on fuel, scrambled desperately to respond to invasion they had not anticipated. Battle of Philippine Sea became catastrophic defeat for Japanese carrier aviation. American pilots shot down Japanese aircraft in such overwhelming numbers, the engagement became known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Loss of the submarine picket contributed directly to this disaster. 6 submarines and 358 men had died providing zero intelligence, had failed their mission completely because they were dead before understanding they were being hunted. April 29, 1944. 2 months before England's record run. Atlantic Theater. USS Elmore hunting U-549 off coast of Massachusetts. The German submarine had torpedoed escort carrier USS Block Island hours earlier. Only American carrier sunk in Atlantic during entire war. Elmore was hunting vengeance. Lieutenant Hayes studied sonar with focused intensity that matched Carson's obsession. Perfect contact. Range 300 yards. Depth 250 feet. This was personal. Block Island crew were brothers, friends, men who deserved revenge delivered with precision. First Hedgehog attack. Miss. Projectiles sank silently past U-549. disappeared toward ocean floor without detonating. But Hayes maintained perfect sonar contact. No acoustic blind spot, could see submarine clearly, could track every evasion maneuver. 30 seconds to reload. German crew could not hear approach. Hedgehog attacks gave no acoustic warning, no engine noise racing toward them, no depth charges splashing, just silent death approaching through water. Second attack. 3 detonations, direct hits on pressure hull at 250 feet. Sharp cracks transmitted through water, breaking up noises. 4 minutes later, sonar operators heard the unmistakable sound of implosion. Heavy crunching explosion as U-549's pressure hull collapsed under mounting pressure of uncontrolled descent. 53 German sailors died as their submarine crumpled, like beer can crushed in fist. Physics was merciless. Steel that should withstand pressure failed when Torpex detonated in direct contact, when explosive force transferred directly into metal rather than being cushioned by water. Hayes felt no satisfaction, felt only understanding that Hedgehog had transformed submarine warfare, made killing efficient, made survival nearly impossible for submarines once detected. Physics had defeated courage. Technology had defeated seamanship. Mathematics had defeated honor. Block Island was avenged. But vengeance looked like oil slicks spreading, like debris floating, like 53 men dead in crushed steel coffin at bottom of Atlantic. Victory felt hollow. May 1945, England. William Bradford received letter from son David. The war in Europe had ended. David had survived. Destroyer had engaged Italian submarines 4 times using Hedgehog. 3 kills, 170 Japanese sailors dead. David was coming home. But the letter contained something Bradford had not expected. Not gratitude for survival, not celebration of victory. Questions, moral questions that haunted young officer who had killed efficiently. Father, your weapon works perfectly. That is the problem. It works too well. Makes killing too simple. Too efficient. I have killed 180 men with Hedgehog attacks. Watched oil slicks spread. Watched debris surface. Never saw their faces. Never knew their names. Just killed them and moved to next target. I cannot celebrate that efficiency. Cannot be proud of mathematics that reduces men to statistics. Cannot forget that somewhere mothers wait for sons who will never return because British physics proves superior to Italian steel. Is this progress? Is this achievement? Or is this just murder made efficient through superior engineering? Bradford read the letter 3 times, understanding that he had spent 4 years building weapon that saved Allied lives, that reduced merchant ship losses, that protected convoys, that enabled invasion of Europe, but also understanding the cost. Every submarine killed meant 40 to 60 men dead, men who had families, who had mothers waiting, who had committed no crime except serving their countries. Hedgehog killed them efficiently, gave them no chance to surrender, no opportunity to escape, just death delivered by physics that cared nothing for courage or honor or humanity. David's questions had no easy answers. War demanded efficiency, demanded weapons that worked, demanded killing before being killed. Bradford had delivered weapon that met those demands, had saved thousands of Allied lives, but saved lives were abstract, statistics on reports, numbers and calculations. Dead Italian sailors were concrete, were oil slicks and debris, were telegrams to mothers, were families destroyed. Mathematics said weapon was success. Morality asked different questions. Questions Bradford could not answer sitting in comfortable English workshop far from ocean graves his engineering had created. May 9, 1945, exactly 1 year after USS England deployed to Pacific. Ship was operating off Okinawa. Final push toward Japanese home islands. War was ending. Victory was certain. But Japan fought with desperate ferocity. Kamikaze attacks increased in frequency and intensity. Pilots willing to, if death meant killing Americans, mathematics of sacrifice that made no strategic sense but extracted terrible costs. Japanese aircraft appeared through clouds at 1423 hours. Dove toward England with single-minded determination. Hit amidships with devastating impact. Explosion killed 37 crew members instantly. Wounded 25 others. Sullivan died at his Hedgehog station, crushed by collapsing bulkhead. Never knew what hit him. Torres lost both legs. trapped in sonar room when blast tore through hull. Survived only because Mitchell pulled him from wreckage before compartment flooded. England was devastated, broken, would never return to combat, spent remainder of war in repair yards. War ended before repairs completed. Carson visited Torres in hospital 3 weeks later, found him staring at ceiling, both legs amputated above knee, face showing pain that morphine could not touch. Physical pain was manageable. Psychological pain was not. Torres spoke first, voice flat, emotionless, shock doing what morphine could not. We killed 5 submarines, sir, 358 Japanese sailors. I counted, calculated. 358 men who died because I maintained perfect sonar contact, because I did my job efficiently, because physics worked. Now I have no legs. Sullivan is dead. 37 crew members killed. Is that justice? Is that mathematics balancing? Did the universe decide we killed too efficiently, that we needed to pay price for being too good at murder? Carson had no answer, had spent year obsessing over killing submarines, had achieved record that would never be broken. 5 submarines in 12 days, 100% kill rate, perfect efficiency. But efficiency extracted costs. Sullivan dead, Torres crippled, 37 crew members killed, ship destroyed. And somewhere in Japan, 358 families waited for men who would never return, mothers who would receive telegrams, wives who would become widows, children who would grow up without fathers. Mathematics said mission was success. Humanity asked whether success built on that many bodies was achievement or atrocity. Carson sat beside Torres. No words came. What could he say? That killing was necessary. That war demanded efficiency. That Sullivan's death and Torres's legs were acceptable costs, all true, all inadequate. War made everyone into killers and called it duty. Made efficiency into virtue. Made mathematics into morality. But sitting beside Torres in hospital room with morphine smell and antiseptic sting and understanding that 37 good men were dead, mathematics felt like lie. Efficiency felt like sin. Victory felt like defeat wearing different uniform. 1953, 8 years after war ended. Carson received invitation to U.S.-Japan Naval Reconciliation Conference in San Francisco. Veterans from both sides meeting to build peace from war's ashes, to share experiences, to transform enemies into humans. Carson almost declined. What would he say to Japanese submarine veterans? How could he face men whose comrades he had killed? What reconciliation was possible after killing 358 men efficiently? But he went. Mitchell convinced him, told him that carrying guilt alone accomplished nothing, that understanding required confronting what had been done, that peace demanded more courage than war. Conference was held at Presidio overlooking Bay, where American ships had departed for Pacific, where men had left for war, where some returned changed, where others never returned at all. Carson met Lieutenant Commander Hiroshi Saito on second day. Former Japanese submarine officer, had served on boats similar to RO-105. Survived war through combination of skill and luck. Saito spoke English, asked Carson directly. Voice carrying no accusation. Just need to understand. You commanded USS England, the destroyer escort that killed 5 submarines in 12 days, Carson confirmed. Voice steady despite hammering heart. 5 submarines, 358 crew members, 12 days, May 1944. Record unmatched in naval warfare. Saito nodded slowly. My cousin commanded RO-106, died May 22, 1944. Your hedgehog killed him and 55 others. I came here to understand how. To understand what weapon could kill submarine my cousin believed was invulnerable. To understand what made American crew more efficient than Japanese skill. Carson explained. The physics, the tactics, the drilling, the obsession that drove him after Daniel died. The 18 months of preparation, the sonar contact maintained through acoustic blind spot, the forward-firing mortars, the contact fuses, the torpex that made steel irrelevant when detonated in direct contact. Explained everything except the cost, except the nightmares, except understanding that efficiency in killing was achievement that could never be celebrated. Saito listened without interrupting, then asked different question that cut deeper than tactical analysis. Did you celebrate those kills? Did you feel pride when my cousin died? Carson told truth. No celebration, no pride, just understanding that we had become efficient at killing. That efficiency served strategy, but cost humanity. Your cousin died with his crew, never had chance to surrender, never knew what hit them. Hedgehog removed honor from combat, made it execution rather than battle. I killed 5 submarines, but killing that efficient feels like murder, regardless of uniform. Saito was quiet for a long moment, then spoke words Carson would remember for rest of his life. My cousin wrote letter before his final patrol, said he trusted Japanese steel to protect him, trusted that discipline and skill would overcome American firepower. Your weapon proved that faith misplaced, proved that physics defeats courage when physics is applied efficiently enough. I cannot forgive the killing. War is war. Men die. But I understand the necessity. Your brother died to U-boat. My cousin died to Hedgehog. Both served countries. Both believed in causes. Both died in steel coffins beneath ocean. We who survived must ensure their deaths meant something, must build peace that makes their sacrifice worthwhile. That is only mathematics that matters now, not kill ratios or efficiency rates. Whether we transform hatred into understanding, whether we make future worth the cost past extracted. That night, Carson could not sleep. Thought about Daniel drowning in radio room, about Yamada's faith in Japanese steel, about 358 men who died to American physics, about Saito's cousin who believed discipline would save him, about mathematics that said killing was justified but could not calculate cost in broken families, and shattered faith in understanding that efficient killing was still killing, regardless of how necessary strategy claimed it was. 2014. Robert Carson was 99 years old, living in San Diego overlooking Pacific that had been battlefield. Navy invited him to ceremony commemorating USS England, unveiling memorial to ship and crew, honoring record that remained unmatched 70 years later. Carson had declined these invitations for decades, did not want to celebrate killing, did not want to be honored for efficiency that cost so much. But this time he accepted, because Hiroshi Saito would be there, because reconciliation mattered more than guilt, because understanding that enemies could become friends was achievement that transcended kill ratios. At ceremony, Carson stood before memorial, black granite engraved with names of 5 submarines. I-16, 106, RO-104, 116, RO-1008, 105. Below those names, inscription read 5 submarines in 12 days, record unmatched in naval warfare. Carson spoke to assembled crowd, veterans from both sides, historians studying tactics, naval officers learning lessons, young people who knew World War II only from books and old men's memories. We are told this record represents excellence, that USS England achieved something remarkable. And perhaps that is true from tactical perspective. We developed better weapon, drilled until we could use it perfectly, killed submarines more efficiently than any crew before or since. 5 attacks, 5 kills, 100% success rate, mathematics that military analysts outstudy, statistics that naval historians cite, achievement that earned presidential unit citation. But I want you to understand the cost of that efficiency. 358 Japanese sailors died, men with families, with dreams, with lives that mattered to people who loved them. They died without seeing what killed them, without chance to fight back or surrender. Died because American physics proved superior to Japanese steel, because Hedgehog removed acoustic blind spot, because forward-firing mortars with contact fuses revolutionized naval warfare, because we drilled until perfect execution became muscle memory. My brother Daniel died when German U-boat torpedoed his merchant ship. I spent 18 months obsessing over killing submarines the way they killed him, without warning, without mercy, without chance to escape. I achieved that goal, killed 5 submarines with 5 attacks. Perfect efficiency, perfect mathematics, perfect revenge. But that efficiency extracted price I did not anticipate. 37 of my crew members died when kamikaze hit our ship. My sonar operator lost both legs. My Hedgehog crew chief died at his station. And I lost something essential, lost ability to see enemies as humans, saw them only as targets, as problems to solve through superior physics. Standing here today, I understand that war demands efficiency, demands we use best weapons available, demands we kill before being killed. Hedgehog was best weapon. That is why we won naval war, why submarines became vulnerable, why physics defeated faith. But winning required becoming efficient killers, required reducing humans to statistics, required choosing mathematics over mercy. I do not regret killing those submarines. They would have killed Allied ships if we had not killed them first. War demands such choices. But I regret celebrating efficiency. Regret treating perfect kill ratio as achievement divorced from human cost. 358 Japanese sailors died. That number matters more than 5 submarines destroyed. Those deaths were necessary for victory. Necessity does not make death meaningless, does not erase families destroyed, does not balance equations where mathematics claims success, but humanity counts cost in mothers who waited for sons who never returned. Modern anti-submarine warfare uses weapons far more sophisticated than Hedgehog. Homing torpedoes, rocket-propelled depth charges, sonar systems that would seem like science fiction to USS England crew. But fundamental principle remains. Strike target before losing sensor contact. Eliminate acoustic blind spot. Maintain continuous tracking. Hedgehog's legacy lives in every modern naval weapon. Lives in understanding that technology makes killing simple, but does not make killing meaningless. We built better weapon, used it efficiently, won battles, won war. But winning required becoming killers, required reducing humans to targets, required choosing efficiency over mercy. I do not regret those choices. War left no alternatives. But I insist we remember cost. Remember faces we never saw. Remember names we never knew. Remember that somewhere Japanese mothers waited for sons killed by American physics. That somewhere wives became widows because British engineering proved superior. That somewhere children grew up without fathers because mathematics said their deaths were necessary. The shell that crushed submarines like paper tubes. The weapon that changed naval warfare forever. The Hedgehog. Physics over courage. Efficiency over honor. Mathematics over humanity. Technology won the battles. But remembering the kins, honoring the enemies who died with same courage as our friends. Understanding that necessity does not erase humanity. That transforms efficiency from execution into sacrifice. Necessary sacrifice that we must never forget was necessary because we made it necessary. Because we chose war. Because we chose weapons. Because we chose efficiency. Because we chose to crush submarines knowing men were inside. Knowing families would grieve. Knowing mathematics would call it victory while humanity counted bodies. Peace is what makes survival worth surviving. Peace is what makes killing worth ending. Peace is what my meeting with Hiroshi Saito taught me. That enemies can recognize shared humanity across war's divide. That reconciliation requires more courage than combat. That building friendship from attempted murder is achievement greater than any kill ratio. Technology made killing efficient. Humanity makes peace possible. Both matter. Both shaped who we became. Both define whether our war service meant something beyond statistics. Whether 358 Japanese deaths and 37 American deaths purchased anything lasting. Whether mathematics that justified killing can be balanced by mathematics of lives saved and futures built, and understanding that former enemies can stand together honoring all who died regardless of uniform. Final image. Carson, 99 years old, standing with Hiroshi Saito, 86 at Memorial. 2 old men who had tried to kill each other's comrades. Who had succeeded. Who had survived. Who chose to build friendship from war's hatred. Who proved that humans make choices about what weapons mean. That physics may crush submarines, but humanity builds peace. That efficiency without remembering cost is execution. But efficiency remembered with grief and honored with reconciliation becomes foundation for peace that makes all sacrifice meaningful. For understanding that winning war through superior weapons was necessary, but winning peace through superior humanity is achievement that matters more, that lasts longer, that transforms statistics into meaning. That makes 358 Japanese deaths and 37 American deaths into sacrifice rather than slaughter, into mathematics that balances not through killer ratios, but through peace that followed, through enemies who became friends, through hatred that became understanding, through war that became history, through killing that became memory, through efficiency that became wisdom about costs technology cannot calculate, but humanity must never forget.